Hello, hey up, hoi. Welcome back to our channel It Takes Dutch Courage, where we are documenting our journey of renovating a 2-hectare quinta, brewing beer and hiking in the wonderful mountains and hills of central Portugal. We bought the quinta in November 2024 after a very long administrative back and forth and moved in mid-December, a bit quicker than we had anticipated. The house was built in the mid-80s, but since then no attempt at any modernisation was made. So even though this is not your classic Portuguese ruin renovation channel, we will have our work cut out for us to get everything in the 21st century.
So today we are going to show you all of the stuff that we've got outside. So a tour of the land, so to speak. At the moment we are here at the the entrance of our property, and you can see we've got quite a big driveway. There's a lot of green, a lot of grass that needs to be mowed. On this end you can see, I think we can walk a bit maybe. Follow me. You can see the olive grove. So we've got around 30 trees in here, I think, Rene. It already looks a lot better than it did when we moved in. So later on we'll probably share some videos to how we got it to this state. But yeah, it's massive. There's a lot of room for more fruit trees. We're certainly not going to plant any more olive trees because I think we've got quite enough of those. But yeah, this is our olive grove.
This is not our cat. Here we used to have the old house. Unfortunately, it wasn't licensed, so it was torn down to make the rest of the building licensed. So it is a bit unfortunate that we don't have the ability of having the old house. But it does give us a nice flat area here that we might put a greenhouse here or something, slightly tucked away, but still getting plenty of sun. At the moment all we have here is a very tiny pile of chipped up olive branches. There were quite a few branches and it turns into a surprisingly tiny pile. But it might be the start of our compost heap, our temporary compost heap, to at least get some of that going. We've yet to turn it, we have yet to see if it does anything, but we'll see. Then we have the outbuilding, the main outbuilding, which is basically workspace. At the moment the side door is non-existent. So we can just walk in if we want to.
Which we are going to do.
It is quite a long building and it's been separated into a few different pieces. The first area was the garage that was connected to the house. The house is no more, but it is still quite a big workspace, fairly square. All sorts of stuff dangling around. And unfortunately there is also one piece of the roof missing here as well. So that surely needs fixing, and then there is all this stuff hanging on the wall here that probably needs cleaning up as well. We have to figure out what this roof is made of to see how we can deal with it. It is a bit stony, but we need to make sure there's no unsafe or hazardous materials worked into it. So before we start doing anything with this roof, we are going to get it checked out. So let's move to the next space. There was sort of a door here, but not really. It was just nailed into the door frame. So we had to open this with a little bit of force. Maybe this is a good time to set that video in where we kick it down.
So Rene's sister is visiting and immediately we are resorting to violence. because we can't get this door open. You can do it. Mild violence.
This is a somewhat smaller area that was the entrance for the main warehouse. There is an entrance here, and there's a very thin, very unstructural wall here with holes in it and lots of movement.
It's cardboard, basically.
Yeah, it's basically cardboard, a little bit thicker, but not of any better quality. But then this takes you into the main, well, what was probably a warehouse mostly, which is an absolutely massive space. This would do well with brewing beer, having a larger workshop for somewhat bulky items. You can tell there's a few trenches in here where they used to be able to clean stuff and it would drain out. For some reason, the first one is still completely open. The second one, they put some dividers in, so the water can't continue, but they've not filled it up. And then there's a third one that's been completely filled in. So we're not entirely sure what the goal was here. But it is a massive space. It is a bit chilly at the moment because the windows are made of glazed. It's not made of windows. So it's quite airy in here. But this is a very, very useful space. And with these beams across everywhere, it'll also be very easy to divide this up into different sections for different purposes. But this will be in the future. For now, we'll have too much to do on the land and the house to be able to get started here. But there is a lot of potential here for future projects.
So now we're back outside, and this is the front of the workshop building. It's raised a bit, and all across you can see a lot of old grapevines. We know that there were growing some grapes when we did the viewing about a year and a half ago. They will need some cutting back at some point, but we'll probably again see what it does over summer and see what can be rescued, or maybe we need to plant some new ones. You can see that it can also do with a bit of TLC on the ground. So later today I'm hoping to get started with the trimmer and get all of this mowed down a bit along with the driveway, because that is still a bit rustic, so to speak. Once we actually get to restoring all of this a bit, the outside, it might be a really nice outside seated area as well underneath the grapevine. So maybe we'll make like a little terrace here as well. See. So along the driveway we've got some more fruit trees, and the crown jewel, I think, is this absolutely insanely massive fig tree. We've tasted the figs when we did our viewing, and I wouldn't say it was the main reason we bought it, but they were absolutely delicious. But we will need to trim it back at some point because it's probably not very efficient anymore in growing, and it just needs a bit of a haircut. But we have yet to figure out what the best way is to prune a fig tree. So if you've got any ideas, then let us know. You can also see clear, like the canal, the irrigation canal is just going all along here. And then it disappears a bit, and then it comes back at some point as well. More of the driveway. I think the previous owners had a bit like a, I wouldn't call it like a garden type thing, but maybe it was a garden type thing. They had some things growing that weren't vegetables, mostly decorative, but also quite a few brambles. If we don't want all of this to be brambled, we will need to do some cutting there as well. Over here we have another Loquat tree. I think we've got 4 of them in total. So that's a lot of loquat, and we don't even know whether we like loquats yet. So interesting times. Another loquat tree. And then this is a really big persimmon tree. There's quite a few fruit still on there. The birds are having a feast at the moment. They are really enjoying that. But hopefully from next year we'll start actually harvesting them as well, and making some nice things with them if we can. Then we are now in kind of in front of the house. So there is a like a mini terrace here with 3 olive trees, and a bit of like a decorative bit of garden that they've made. It doesn't look very decorative at the moment, so again we have a lot to do here to make it a bit more cozy and a bit more us. And then over here we have, oh, I just stood on the cat. Over here we have a extra building that was built on the side of the storage space because they didn't have enough storage yet, apparently. But for us, this would be the ideal place for a outside kitchen. So the idea is to find out a way how we can open up the front of that, maybe place some doors and windows in there so we can enjoy the view and sit there all year round, either protected from the sun, or when it's a bit colder but still nice to sit outside. We could spend quite some afternoons and evenings there, and to really make it an outdoor kitchen, so with a nice wood fire, maybe a pizza oven, proper seating, and really a nice relaxing area to just enjoy the view. And if you turn right now, you can see that view.
Let's move on to the sort of leveled terraces that we have here. While going there, we've got a few more olive trees here. Here we have a somewhat ugly cherry tree. It was a really massive tree. It needed trimming anyway, but we did a more aggressive trim because we used to have our telephone cables going across here, and it was overgrowing and it was getting tangled up. Then when they came to install the internet, they decided we don't need this old cable anymore. They took it out and ran it through a different area, and that means that this aggressive haircut was a little bit in vain. Hopefully it'll survive and it'll grow back to its former glory. But for now it'll be a little bit of an eyesore for the time being. Then just next to it we also have a pomegranate tree, right there.
Yep.
So in between all the olive trees and the cherry trees, there's one little fruit tree they're trying to hang in there as well. Then over here there are 2 sections of they are effectively terraces. There's a little retaining wall at the bottom there, and there's a little retaining wall here. Along the bottom there's just yet more olive trees, so we have plenty of those. We have about 35 in total, most of which all in around this field, but then a few are dotted around elsewhere as well. On these terraces we are eventually planning on making some raised beds, grow some more fruit and veg, and there's still space for a few additional fruit trees as well. We have yet another loquat tree here as well, because
Two.
we didn't have enough.
Two.
Oh, there's two next to each other. So if we go down the terrace a little bit, so we had a loquat tree there. We have another one here. Oh, I completely skipped over the lemon tree as well, but we'll get back to that one. And then there are two quite big hazel trees as well. They're not massively tall, but they are quite
Bushy.
We'll have to figure out what we can do with them. Do they even produce anything? How do we trim them back? That basically goes for most trees. We need a lot of figuring out of when and how most of these trees need to be cared for. And then in the middle of this terrace there are two tiny trees. So this is an oak tree, and this looks to be another cherry tree, comparing it to the big cherry tree. These are obviously way too close to each other, so we'll have to decide which one to keep, or whether these are a little bit in the middle of the terrace anyway and need either moving or just taking out. But these terraces, this one has got a little bit more of a slope, but that will help with drainage as well. So we can put some beds here that need really good drainage, make sure that the water can get away here. And then the top terrace is a little bit more level, so we have to be careful that we are still going to have good drainage. There's still a little bit of a slope, so I don't think we'll have too many issues with it. We'll probably start our first beds up here because it's quite level and it makes it a little bit easier to build them as well. And these spots also have the added benefit of having a reasonable amount of shade. Here, right on the side of the house, we have a fairly sizable lemon tree. There are still a few lemons in there. There's a few on the ground here, but if you look closely, there's like an absolutely massive lemon in there as well. So this one's quite productive, but again, it needs a bit of a trim to be properly productive.
Can't see it.
Also, it's right up against the house, so longer term we might remove it. We'll leave it for now, get more lemons until we have a new lemon tree.
Speaking of more lemons,
we've got two nice little trees starting to grow here. So what we might do is, because we don't want to have these like right up against the house, take these out and try and replant them further up and see if they're happy to do so. So that might mean that hopefully in a few years' time these will start producing elsewhere, and then we can take out the tree that's sitting right up against the house.
clearly we haven't got enough outbuildings yet, because we have yet another one to show you. And we won't go very close by because we've dumped a lot of wood in front of it. But you can see we've got it's kind of a square type building that was used, we think, for some pigs and maybe some chickens and other animals. We can't get in because there's no key to the door, but it would make a lovely outside office, for example. But again, like many other things, it's far away in the future before we will start working with it, although we might start clearing away some of the growth alongside it. One of the things that we'll also have to do, and we'll probably do that a bit sooner, is trim and actually fell some of the trees that are now growing closer to the boundary of the outbuildings, because we don't want the trees there to be growing too big and then fall over in a storm and damage the entire building. We've got more than enough trees in our forest, so we want to keep it contained for safety as well. And also, if there are forest fires, then we don't want any trees near our home, and keep it as clear as possible, again for our safety. We are now at the back of the house, where you can see the roof of the adega, which we've shown in the previous video, which is made at the back of the basement where they used to store all the wine and where we are going to store all our beer, hopefully. As you can see, it's almost got like a nice little cinema arena feel to it. So one of the things we're thinking of doing is for warm summer nights to make this into a seating area with an outside cinema, because we've got this massive white wall here that we can project films and series and whatever on while we are relaxing. There's still a lot of rubbish here on the floor, as you can see. When they cleared out the house, I think they burned a lot of stuff. So as soon as we got our wheelbarrow, we will start moving things across and away from here. But as you can see, we'll be able to see the screen, but also to the side still have the most wonderful view. There is still quite a bit of traffic here on the road, so when we're sitting here enjoying a film, it'll also shelter us a bit from the noises from the road, which will be rather nice as well. So next up is our forest, and I never thought I would be able to say next up our forest. So for the best view of our forest, let's go to the top. So if you are a runner, this is a brutal hill for some hill sessions and hill repeats. I do not recommend it because we ran up it yesterday after our run and we died. So hopefully in a few years we will think it's very easy. So the forest spans, I think, around 1 hectare of the land, so about half of it. And it consists of a mix of pine, eucalyptus and some very young oak trees as well. You can see it's fenced off, so that is the neighbour's land. And what more can you say about forest? And one of the reasons like I said, we went up here is because this is where you get the best view of not just the forest, but also the house and its location. Just take a moment to appreciate the view. In the forest, we also have noticed quite a lot of pine procession caterpillars. So in the very near future, we'll have to do some scouting and burning of the little buggers because they aren't really good for anyone, but particularly not for cats. So we want to, before Lily gets out, we want to make sure we get as many of them as we can. We won't be able to get all of them because some of them are 7, 8, 9 meters up in the air, but we do want to try and get as many as we can. We've already managed to get quite a lot of wood from the forest as well for our wood burners. We already have 2 massive trees that have fallen over that at some point in time we'll need to cut up in logs to dry in time for next winter. But we've already managed to forage a lot of other wood, trees that have been down for quite a while. They've already given us some very nice fires, especially when we didn't have the heating, which was really nice.